don't use anymore. We all use thumb drives, right? But that used to happen with a physical attack more often than not, and somebody would get some sort of malicious virus on a floppy disk that had a worm, and when you plugged it into a computer, it would begin to spread across the network. Now it's malicious code that's delivered through other payloads such as email. But it's an example of how they evolve. The good news is that worms often use legacy vulnerabilities, such as, probably nobody in this room will know what this is, but SMB version 1, it's a networking technology. Oftentimes they use legacy technologies that, as long as you are keeping all of your systems patched, you're keeping security patches done on Windows and Office and Reader and Flash and Java and all those important things, then you're going to shut down the ability for the worm, oftentimes, not always, but for that worm to spread. Let's see. So let's look at a case study. Who remembers the WannaCry virus last year? Does that ring a bell? WannaCry ransomware. A few people maybe. Okay. WannaCry gets all of the glory of the WannaCry attack that spread worldwide, but really it was just the payload. It was the worm. I'm sorry, it was not the worm, it was the payload. It was the method which the hackers used to deliver the malicious code to systems through email. Really, the workhorse of the attack is called Eternal Blue, and that was the worm. And Eternal Blue was actually an NSA exploit. It was written by the NSA for them to be able to worm into systems, and it was hacked and stolen by the hacktivist group Shadow Brokers on April 14th. So Eternal Blue was the delivery mechanism that delivered WannaCry ransomware payload, and it was delivered without any human interaction whatsoever. WannaCry started infecting machines on May 12, 2017, 1 month after it was stolen from the NSA. Microsoft is purported to have known about the exploit prior and was working on a fix in the background. And it was a Microsoft Windows operating system exploit that allowed WannaCry and Eternal Blue to do their damage and spread. Microsoft issued a patch 1 day after WannaCry started to hit on May 13th, 2017. The weaponization of stolen information was very quick. WannaCry highlights the most important aspect of cyber defense. Defense is inherently reactive. But the key we want you guys to take away from here today is that success lies in being proactive, not in being reactive. So here's some best practices to keep in mind, guys. Travis, where are we on time?
It's 9.
It's 9? Okay. In the interest of time, guys, I'm gonna go past this. These are some of the things that we've talked about, and we're gonna move on really quick. This is something important that we want to talk about. Has anybody in here heard of GDPR, the GDPR regulation? Okay, a few of you have, and that's the important thing for us to know right now is that GDPR is actually going to affect about 90% of US businesses. And only somewhere between 20 to 30% of US businesses even know anything about it at this point. GDPR, I'll read this just to make it easy, but the European Parliament adopted the GDPR, which is General Data Protection Regulation. They adopted it in April of 2016, replacing an outdated data protection directive from 1995. It carries provisions that require businesses to protect the personal data and privacy of European Union citizens for transactions that occur within European Union member states. The GDPR also regulates the exportation of personal data outside of the European Union. So after I read that, probably 90% of you go, I'm not affected. I'm good. I'm not doing any business in Europe, and I don't transact any European Union citizen data in Europe, right? We're going to go on and talk a little bit more about that and why you probably are affected. Really quick though, what types of data are included in GDPR that has to be protected. So it's basic identity information such as name, address, ID numbers, social security numbers, whatever those might be. Web data such as location, IP address, cookies, and RFID tags. Health and genetic data, biometric data, racial or ethnic data, political opinions, and sexual orientation. All of that data under GDPR must remain safe and secure for European Union citizens. So, which companies does this affect? Any company that stores or processes personal information about European Union citizens within European Union states must comply with the GDPR, even if they do not have a business presence within the European Union. Specific criteria for companies required to comply are a presence in a European Union country, no presence in a European Union country, but it processes personal data of European residents, a company that has more than 250 employees. Now here's the contradiction, or a company that has fewer than 250 employees, but its data processing impacts the rights and freedoms of data subjects, is not occasional, or includes certain types of sensitive personal data. This affects nearly all companies. And so the way that GDPR is written is that if you happen to house or process or store any data of a European Union citizen and you expose them to a potential threat, a potential breach of their data, you are liable. Doesn't matter if you reside in the European Union, or your company does, or you reside here. So, a couple of examples, and I know for a fact, because I know some people here in Park City, we have European Union citizens who live in Park City nearly full time. We have European Union citizens who might have U.S. citizenship as well, or they might be, have green cards and be legal residents of the United States, but they live here. If you have their data, they're still a European Union citizen. If you have their data and that data is breached, and that person says, whoa, you exposed me, and I'm going to report that to the GDPR Regulation Council, then you're in trouble. If you happen to process credit card information, if you have a store, or you make lodging reservations, or whatever it might be for European Union citizens, and you expose them in any way, you're liable. And what does liability mean under GDPR? Let's see. Yes, okay, so when do I have to be compliant? We're 11th hour, guys. Companies have to be compliant by May 25th, a month, right? May 25th of this year. What happens if I'm not GDPR compliant and I happen to expose a European Union citizen to a potential security threat or breach, and they find out, and the GDPR finds out? The starting fine is $20 million, or 4% of your annual revenue. If you happen to be a smaller business who can't afford $20 million, right? Those fees don't include any attorney fees that you're going to need. It doesn't include class action lawsuits. It doesn't include other fines that might come to you from other government bodies and regulations within the United States or within Utah. So GDPR is something that we all have to begin to take seriously. If we feel like in any way that we might transact data that belongs to a European Union citizen, and estimates right now are that 90% of businesses in the United States need to be concerned about GDPR. So what should my company be doing to be prepared for GDPR? You need to set a sense of urgency that comes from the top management. If you're not top management here, you need to go back to your management and talk to them about, are we doing the right things to be GDPR compliant or not? You need to involve all stakeholders, everybody who has a say in this. You need to conduct a risk assessment. You need to hire or appoint a DPO. A DPO is a data protection officer. Under GDPR, that's what they call it. It's somebody who's going to be the responsible party for making sure that you're doing the right things with data to keep it secure. You need to create a data protection plan. Don't forget about your mobile devices in that plan. Create a plan to report your GDPR compliance progress. So there is actually reporting that can be done through a website where you can report your progress on being GDPR compliant. You need to implement measures to mitigate the risk. You need to test your incident response plan, so you need to have an actual incident response plan. If something happens, what do we do? What are the steps? What are the exact steps? And then test it to make sure it's working. Because as with most government regulations that involve data security, you have to begin your process of disclosing and reporting within 48 to 72 hours. So you need to make sure that you're testing that to make sure that you're going to be able to respond quickly enough. And then you need to set up a process for ongoing assessment. If this all is what do I want to say? If this is all kind of like brand new to you and you just don't understand what you need to do, that's what Nexus is here to help you with as well. We've become very well versed at GDPR and can help you implement these plans. What if I suffer a breach? What do I do? So if your company happens to be breached, and unfortunately statistics show that 60 to 75% of you in this room at some point will be breached. If you are breached, you want to immediately stop and shut down and disconnect everything that you think is infected or breached. Okay? If that's your server and 5 of your computers that are popping up with some ransomware pop-up, then stop, shut them all down. You want to start changing all your passwords from any affected accounts. And that might be all your accounts, right? That might be all 50 of them, or whatever it is that you have. And you got to start thinking about, if I have a computer that was breached, it's very possible that that hacker's been in there for a period of time already, and that they've already gathered my passwords for my bank accounts, my Facebook accounts, my whatever it might be, right? And so you want to start changing all your passwords immediately. Then you want to get in touch with a cybersecurity professional to begin doing forensic and remediation. It's very important that if you're breached, and many of you may not know, but at this point in our world, if you are breached, you have to disclose. Many of us want to sweep it under the rug and make it hush-hush and be quiet about it. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble doing that. And if you happen to have class action lawsuits come your way, that'll look very bad for you. And so you want to make sure that you're properly doing the right things to not destroy any of the data, get all the forensic data necessary to begin your reporting and disclosure process. You want to get a cybersecurity attorney involved. You want to get a cyber insurance agent involved. And preferably you should have all 3 of these people on your team before any of this ever happens. And then you want to get all 3 of those people on a phone call to begin talking about strategy and how to deal with your situation. So what do you do to protect yourself? Quickly, here's some options. We'll send this out to everybody when we're, oops, I went a little too far. Some of the quick things you can be doing are penetration testing or threat assessment. Make sure you're using unified threat management and not haphazard security solutions. Use commercial grade firewalls. Use spam filtering, use content filtering. Lock down the use of unapproved third-party applications such as Dropbox or OneDrive or whatever it might be that you're not using. Implement a mobile device policy and security protocols. Why did that just move on me? Sorry. Cyber attack. Right? There we go. Force passwords that are difficult to hack and force them to be changed every 90 days. Lock down your user privileges so that they can't simply install whatever they want on their computers. Back up, make sure that you have data and image backups of all of your critical data and systems. The reason we say that is because if you get a ransomware and we say your data, your backups have been working and you're in good shape, all we have to do is wipe and clean that system that's infected and rebuild it as if it were brand new from scratch, and then restore all the data from your backups. We don't have to pay a ransom, right? The problem is that many organizations call us in when they've had a ransomware or another malicious attack hit, and they've never thought correctly about their backups, or they implemented backups 2 years ago and never monitored them. And we've literally been called into situations where a company has, ransomware that is spread across their entire network, and the first thing we ask them is, do you have backups? They say, yeah, those were implemented a couple years ago. We go look at the backups, and we had a situation last year where we had to say, guys, we're really sorry. You have backups, but they haven't worked for 9 months. So you have two choices. We either restore all your data to 9 months ago, and then you have to manually go back and recreate the last 9 months, or we pay the ransom and try to get your data back. The thing to know is that even paying the ransom is not 100% guarantee you're going to get your data back. It requires the hacker to cooperate with you and give you a decryption software that decrypts your files, but generally that decryption software only works on about 75% of the files, and you lose about 25% of your data. So backups are extremely important. Make sure you're educating your employees. Put an acceptable use policy, technology acceptable use policy in place. Make sure all your people sign that. We can give you templates for that if you want them. And lock down the ability for your employees to access your data from other places that you don't want them to access it. Home, other devices that you don't want them to be using. Bottom line is that we all have to get serious about protecting our company against cybercrime and cyber threats. But what does that look like? Make sure that you're doing a threat assessment. What is your current status and what are your current vulnerabilities? Put together an action plan, and then make sure that you're doing ongoing maintenance and monitoring. Cybersecurity, guys, is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. Okay? It's something that you have to constantly be active and interactive with. We did want everybody to know that we have a couple of options that make this all really easy. This is what we call our cybersecurity defense plan. It includes pretty much all the solutions that we've talked about today that protect you. We normally sell it at $69 a user a month. For those that are in attendance today, if you want to talk to Travis after, we do it for $40 for our attendees of these events, $40 a user a month. And this Know Before security awareness training is an extremely effective tool. This is something that really all of our organizations should have. It is a platform that allows us to require our employees to take online cybersecurity training modules, take classes. You can have them take a class every month or a class every quarter, and then they have to test. If they fail the test, they have to take the class again, and then they have to retest. After they take a class and they test, and they're successful, this system will actually randomly, over the coming weeks and months, will begin to send them some targeted phishing attacks, targeted pop-ups and things like that. If they click on the wrong thing, it goes beep, 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 right? Not literally, but it tells them, you failed, right? You just took that class, you said you would never click on that link, but you just clicked on that link, so now you gotta go back and take the class and redo the test. This only costs $30 a user a year is all it costs. It's really inexpensive and very efficient. For our guests at our events like this, we do it for $28 a user a year, okay? It's something very effective and very efficient that everybody should have. That's it for me, guys. I don't want to take too much of Mark's time. Let's take a couple of questions, and then we'd be happy to take some questions after the event. I know the gentleman here in the green shirt, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Could you tell me your name?
Troy.
Troy, go ahead. What question did you have?
So on the experiment you guys did where you sent emails out, is the vulnerability when they open the email or when they click on the link, or both?
It can be both. For the majority of malicious emails, it's required for you to do something more than open the email, right? And I don't know the exact statistic, but I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of malicious emails, you've got to click on that link, or you've got to call the phone number, or something to that effect, right? However, hackers get smarter and smarter all the time, and some of the new payloads that are being delivered are able to execute malicious code and begin installing a virus or a malware or ransomware simply by the opening of the email. So that's where it's very important to have good spam filtering in place, and then for you to be smart enough to filter also by subject lines, right? And maybe not open emails. So if you look at, okay, hopefully if you got a good spam filter, that email ended up in your junk mail folder, right? And so you go to your junk mail or your spam folder, whatever it is, in whatever email platform you're using. You go to that folder and then you scan through your subject lines, right? Don't click on any of them that don't look like something that you need. I have legitimate things, that go to my spam folder. We get what are called false positives, right? Oftentimes, like if I'm doing some sort of bank transaction or something like that, right? It'll end up in my junk mail folder. So I'll scan through that. If it's Wells Fargo, right, and I know I'm expecting an email from Temple at the local Wells Fargo branch or something like that, then I'll click on that email and flag it as not junk. But the ones that look suspicious, don't even click on them, right? Just empty your junk mail once you have sorted through your legitimate emails. Make sense? Any other questions, guys? Elaine, yeah.
How often do you think we should back up? Is it a daily thing, weekly?
It depends on the organization and your data, but for most it's daily. Most of the backup solutions that we implement are real time, and so every time you change a file, it gets backed up instead of daily batches, and that's kind of an old way of doing backups. Daily batches or weekly batches. Most newer technologies now are real-time backups. They're happening right away. But at minimum, for most organizations, it's a daily thing. All right, any other questions, guys? Yeah, Roy.
How do you deal with the employee using the USB drive? There's a new one out there that's coming out. It's called the Rubber Ducky.
Yep.
For like $50. They can just buy it, stick it in. How do you fight something against that?
In most organizations that want to be serious about that, you have a group policy, and I'm going to talk at a little bit more of an IT level because Roy's an IT guy at Promontory. So you have a group policy that disables your USB ports on your machines, and that's it. That's generally how you deal with it. And obviously in your AUP, in your acceptable use policy, you disclose that nobody is allowed to plug any unapproved flash drives into their machines, and they have to sign. So it could be cause for termination if they do, right?
Okay.
You can also make an exception. So you got a key. Well, it's so close. A key goes in, that key's allowed, no other key's allowed.
Right.
Or read only or block. But there's ways to block almost every peripheral on a computer from being either read or used or wireless bridging. There's tons of options.
Okay.
Yep. Take one more question if there's any more. All right, thanks guys, you've been fantastic. I want to introduce Mark Hatch. Mark is a valuable partner of ours, a guy that we like a lot, and who's genuinely a good guy and a cyber insurance expert. We've worked with quite a few over the years. Mark definitely knows his stuff. And so it's very important, as I mentioned in my presentation, you need 3 people on your team. And if you don't have them now, you need to be putting those people on your team. You need a cyber insurance attorney. Because if you put the right documents and mechanisms in place up front, you protect yourself far better from the ramifications of a breach, class action lawsuits and things like that. You need cyber insurance. My business can't afford a $2.5 million bill for a breach. Most of us in here cannot, right? And so if you have the right cyber insurance, even though that breach may cost you $2.5 million, it becomes the burden of the insurance policies. It becomes their burden rather than yours to fill most of that cost. And you need a professional cyber firm on your side as well, which would be, for those of you who are clients in here, for Nexus. If you're not our clients, we'd love to talk to you. Anyways, without further ado, let's welcome Mark Hatch. Let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you,
Earl.
everybody.
Appreciate it. Good morning, Jazz fans. Is that right? I hope. Hope you're not, nobody here from Oklahoma City, I hope. And so we'll see how tonight goes. But again, as Earl mentioned, my name is Mark Hatch, and I get the dubious honor of talking about insurance at 9:21 in the morning. I'm not sure if things get too much more exciting than that. But what I really want to do today is tell a few stories, tell you some real life examples, and a few things that I've seen in the industry. Earl asked me to just quickly give you a 30,000-foot view, though, of why I'm here and who I am and that kind of thing. So let me just briefly walk you through my path of how I got to what I do today. Graduated from college a long time ago with a degree in international finance, and worked in Manhattan with an insurance company. They hired me there to originally kind of learn the insurance business, and they were going to send me to China at the time. This is back in the late 80s, and nothing was happening in China. And so what we did is we formed a holding company in London. I got a chance to go run the thing, 26-year-old kid, and they gave me a chance to go do this. And it was a very steep learning curve, but it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. It was great. And so I worked 3 doors down from Lloyd's of London for 3 years and really, really learned the insurance business while I was there. And so that was a great experience. And then I came back to the States, worked on numerous other things, consulting, and then also in the insurance world, and ended up back here in Salt Lake where I grew up, and met a guy that owned an insurance agency, and he knew about my insurance background, and he said, "Why on earth aren't you selling insurance?" And I said, "Are you kidding? I'm still a young kid." It's like, sell insurance? I can't sell it. I'd be scared to death if I had to go sell something. And so anyway, he said, "That's nonsense. We're getting you licensed," and I did. So I worked for him for, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe 9 years, became his top sales guy, and I could see the writing on the wall. I was feeding his kids with my commissions. And so I thought, I'm gonna open my own shop. So that was, goodness, was that 20 years ago, maybe? 22 years ago. And been doing that since. I own the Hatch Insurance Group. We're in Draper. We're a full service insurance brokerage firm. We do business in all 50 states. And so a little bit about me, but cyber has been something that's been very fascinating to me. And so I've kind of made that a niche in a lot of our business, partially because a lot of our business owners come to us and they're not sleeping well at night. They're waking up like, wait a minute, I don't like this, or they hear stories on the news like we all do. And so, you know, one of the things about insurance companies is, like Earl talked today about data, how important your data is. And you know, if I were to ask all of you today, why do you buy insurance? 90% of you would say, oh, if my building burns, or if I wreck my car, or my employees get hurt, I need workers' comp. If Earl invites me back in 5 years, I'll ask you guys again, and I will almost guarantee you the number one thing you're going to say is, I'm afraid somebody's going to steal my data. Data is, you know, you can rebuild buildings, but if data is lost, that is one of the most valuable assets that a lot of businesses have. And so insurance companies are the king of big data. They collect all of the information about all of our businesses, our personal lives for personal lines insurance, and they hold that. And they really truly do know and are able to predict really well what's going to happen. How many fires, how many incidences, how many thefts, how many accidents. You know, in, I don't know how many of you have been to New York, but in New York, there's always the inner battle between people from New York and those from New Jersey. Well, you know, in the insurance world, the actuaries are the ones who do all of these calculations and these estimates. Our patent saying in New York was that, you know, the New York actuaries will tell you how many deaths there are going to be this year. The New Jersey actuaries will give you their names. And so, you know, there's just, it's the actuaries that are calculating all of this out. So in the insurance world, the definition of a data breach is this. It says the loss, theft, accidental release, or accidental publication of personal identifiable information, whether stored electronically or in paper files. We don't think about that a lot. I've read about cyber liability claims caused by somebody dumpster diving to pull paper out of a garbage can, because printouts with confidential information are on those paper pieces of paper. So as Earl talked about, most of the time when people think about a data breach, they think about a hacker hacking into somebody's system and stealing data, just like we talked about with all the phishing and all of the incidences that Earl talked about. In reality, the majority of claims that we see in the insurance world are paper or electronic files, lost or stolen laptops and smartphones or tablets, of course credit card information, that's generally hacked into, or really the number one that we see most of the time is theft of information by former employees or disgruntled employees, or sometimes even just employee oversight. I'll give you an example of that here in just a bit as I go through this. So those are some areas that we see a lot of cyber liability or data breach claims occurring. You know, we all hear in the news about the big data breaches. We all heard about Target. We hear about Home Depot. I don't know how much of you know about and any guesses how much that Target cyber claim cost? What's your guess? Somebody throw out a number.
500 mil?
Very close. $300 million so far. Okay. Fortunately, or maybe unfortunately, they were carrying a $90 million cyber liability policy, so they're still on the hook for 210 million. But one of the ramifications that they're seeing is, to this day, you'll talk to people who say, you know, I don't shop at Target anymore. I don't go there because I'm afraid of using my credit card there. And so no one really knows what their total number is. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if it is at 500 million already, or is getting close to that. But you know, some of the others that we hear about, remember when Sony got hacked? All of those rather salacious emails that got out, and then the movies that got pirated and things of that nature. The IRS got hacked. I almost found that laughable, but they got hacked. Recent ones in the last 2 weeks. How many of you use MyFitnessPal with Under Armour? I did. You know, 150 million users lost their username and password information on there. Yeah, Earl?
Morgan, you and I talked about this last week, but and I completely forgot to mention this. I didn't want to inform everybody and tell everybody that MyFitnessPal breach, if you've ever used it before, the hack allowed the hackers to get the password for MyFitnessPal in plain text, and so MyFitnessPal, such as many other apps, you can log into that with your Facebook account or with your Google account. So if they got the password for your MyFitnessPal account, they've also got your password for Facebook or Google or whatever account you use to authenticate with. But the important thing to keep in mind is if you use that password, that same password for other accounts, they're going to go start using that. So if they, let's just say, they got your MyFitnessPal password, and you use Google to log in. They go to your Gmail account and realize, okay, you have a Zions Bank account. I'm going to go to your bank account. I've got your bank account number now because I got this email from Zions Bank, right? I'm going to go to your bank account. I'm going to try that same password. Bam, I'm in your bank account. I'm going to take money out of your bank account, right? So if you had a MyFitnessPal account, go change all your passwords right now, because the hackers may have your password to a lot of different accounts. Right?
Great point. How many of us use the same password on all of them? Because heaven knows I have no more bandwidth in my brain to remember all my passwords anymore. And so, we use similar passwords. I have a little inside scoop there. My son is one of their advanced programmers at Under Armour. He works down in Austin, Texas. And so he told me when all this happened, he was a little frantic at first, but he texted me the next day, and he says, Dad, you have no idea how hard it is to send 150 million emails in one day. And I thought, oh yeah, I guess that would shut down some servers to send out that many emails. So anyway, Under Armour got hit. Last week, Saks Fifth Avenue and Lord & Taylor lost 5 million credit card numbers. And so it seems to be happening more and more frequently. We hear a lot about it in the news. Unfortunately for most of us, and I don't know who all is here, so I don't know the size of your various companies, your entities, or your businesses, but 85% of the breaches, again, this is just insurance data, but 85% of the data breaches that occur are in small businesses. The definition of a small business is less than 100 employees. And so the vast majority are coming at us, okay? The even more scary statistic than that, though, is of those companies that get hacked, 60% of them are out of business in 6 months. And it's largely due to the fact that they don't have cyber insurance to back up, to be the safety net, to catch them as they fall. And so, what is it that causes these companies to go out of business? It's the cost, it's the fines, it's the penalties, it's the charges. Like, for instance, if your data is hacked, there are all kinds of fines that could be levied. There are PCI compliance fines if you're taking credit cards. Visa will levy significant fines if you get a credit card hacked. If you're in the medical world or the health world, you have HIPAA compliance issues that'll get you in trouble. You'll be fined. In the financial world, I have an example I'll tell you about here in a few minutes of a client that's in the financial world. FINRA is an organization that will levy fines. The state and federal government have gotten into the game, saw that there's opportunity to fine. If any of you are a publicly traded company, you know what Sarbanes-Oxley Act is then. Remember when that was passed back in, what, 08 when we had all the problems? Anyways, Sarbanes-Oxley has added cybersecurity and record protection requirements, which you'll be fined for. Just the fact that if your data is hacked, you've got to supply credit monitoring for 1 to 3 years. There's an expense associated with that. And then of course repairing your own systems, fixing that, and then the kind of the unspoken real big number is the public relations nightmare that occurs when these things happen. How do you keep yourself out of the news so that your company continues afloat? On average, on a data breach, the average cost per account that gets hacked is $275. So you get a small business, let's say they have 1,000 clients to keep the math easy. That's a $275,000 expense if they don't have any insurance to back this up. Most small businesses, they don't have $275,000 sitting in a savings account just in case they ever get hacked by insurance. And so it's critical. The insurance piece as your safety net is your critical piece to keep you in business, to keep you going. I'll talk about pricing here in a minute as well, because the price of cybersecurity has come down dramatically. Let me tell you about a few examples. The first ones, fortunately, are not my clients. The last one is my client. I'll tell you about that. This company was a real estate agency, and they had a virus, got into their system, and then an email was sent out, and that virus was spread to an e-commerce firm. The e-commerce firm had a denial of service attack, or they were out of business for a period of time. So they sued the real estate agency for lost revenue and then the cost to repair their own systems. The real estate agency spent about $50,000 in legal expenses to defend themselves. They settled out of court for $30,000, so it was an $80,000 expense, but the time and the stress and the hassle of being away from what they do normally, who knows what that cost. And so that was a small incident. Here's another one. This is a small appliance store owner. The owner was going to be creative. He was going to collect the patterns of who's buying what and keep some email addresses and phone numbers, and so that he could drip market back to his clients and sell other things. They had been collecting that information, had not properly updated the software in their systems. They didn't have, obviously didn't have Sophos, and so they hadn't had things current, and they were hacked into. They were fined. They were fined $50,000 in the state where they were located for privacy law violations. Spent $10,000 on legal fees. This next one is a retail drugstore who I won't give you the name, but you would know who they are. They had let's see here. Yeah, they had credit and debit card numbers and expiration numbers stolen from their system. They spent $400,000 alone just on forensics to figure out which cards were stolen, which information was taken. They had numerous expenses. Also spent $75,000 on a PR firm just to fix their name in the public. And so, anyway, I mentioned, but I would give you a real life example. This is a client of mine, and I will jump to the end first and give you the real bad news. 4 months prior to this happening, I had offered $1 million cyber policy to this client, and they said, "Cyber, I don't even take credit cards. I don't need to buy this." So they did not buy the cyber liability policy from me, although they subsequently have. But what happened is one of their employees, the lady that handles accounts payable, she got an email, and it had an attachment that was entitled past due invoice, and she thought she had missed a payment. She paid somebody, and she was doing the right thing, It's like, oh, I got to make sure I get all of our bills paid. Clicked on it, and it was a ransomware virus, And it immediately took all their systems down, their servers down, everything in the company went out. And, and unfortunately for them, their IT director also had their backup open at the time. He'd been doing some kind of work, and so the backup got shut down as well, and it infected. And so they were notified by the hackers that they wanted to be paid in Bitcoin, which Earl referred to. This was also maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So Bitcoin was, we kind of knew about it, but not like we do today. We all hear about Bitcoin today. But anyway, they called me and said, hey, what should I do? I know I didn't buy this policy from you, but what should we do? So I said, how much do they want? And what are these guys asking? He said, they're asking for $1,500 in Bitcoin. I said, for $1,500 you pay the guys. That's cheap compared to what it could cost. And so they figured out how to buy Bitcoin, which took a while at the time, and figure out, if I were to ask to go buy Bitcoin today, I wouldn't know where to go. I'd call Earl. I'd be like, Earl, who do I talk to? And so anyway, they figured out how to buy Bitcoin. Apparently you have to buy it in tranches, so you can't go in and say, I'd like I'd like $1,250 of Bitcoin. It doesn't quite work that way. You buy amounts. So anyway, they bought $1,500 of Bitcoin, sent it off to these hackers, who promptly responded back the next couple of days and said, your Bitcoin never arrived. We never got paid. I'm not going to do it. So okay, so they sent another $1,500 to these guys. So now they're out $3,000, and so. The hackers were honest hackers. Okay, they sent the decryption code back, and they thought, okay, great, we got this. So they decode all their files. I mentioned to you this was a financial services company, and so everything, as you can imagine, everything's spreadsheets and complicated spreadsheets, macros and formulas and lookup tables and all the things that Excel has. And so anyway, they decrypted all their files, and they opened them up, and there they were. All their spreadsheets are there with their numbers on it. But those of us who use Excel, there were just numbers in the cell. Okay, there's no formula behind it that calculated. They lost all their what-if scenarios, all of the connections between this file and that file and how they all interface. There was nothing. They had spreadsheets with numbers in the cells. And so paying the $3,000 to get the decryption code really didn't help them that much. So anyway, probably, a year later, I was having lunch with one of the owners, and we were talking about this, and I said, so Scott, here we are a year later. What this whole thing end up costing you guys? And he said, it's funny you bring that up. We just talked about that as a board. Our board of directors talked about that, and we're out almost $250,000 in a year to get that cleaned up. They had the means to pay it, to keep themselves in business. They had $250,000. Most businesses don't. But and then the irony of the whole thing is then they turned around and bought a policy from me, an insurance policy, because they was like, this is too painful. But the part about that is happening is when cyber first came out, and clear back when I was in London, we're talking little bits of cyber. When it first became available, it was expensive, and most people thought, I don't think I'll buy that. So many insurance companies have jumped into the cyber world that it's driven the premium prices way down. You can get, depending on your business, you can get $1 million of cyber liability coverage for probably $2,500 a year, $200 a month to protect yourself for $1 million. And it's not uncommon to get $2, $3, $5 million, $10 million of cyber, largely due to depending on what type of business you're in. But the cyber pricing has come down pretty dramatically. One of the things, a piece of advice I would share with you is that when you do go get cyber, be careful what you're buying. It's not generic, like, okay, I need some cyber insurance, I think I'll just buy a cyber policy. There are policies that are all very different. There's first-party coverage, which protects you. There's third-party coverage, which protects the people whose data was stolen. There's exclusions built into there to say, well, we're not, we will fix these things, but if you get fined by the government, we're not going to pay for that. If you get fined by Visa, we're not going to pay for that. So be very careful what you buy. It is a bit of a complicated type of a policy. It's not a generic policy like your auto policy. There is some nuances to it, and so I would recommend that you make sure that you do understand what it is that you're buying. And And then really, kind of in closing or conclusion would be, make sure that you've got your systems in place like Earl was talking about. It's a multifaceted way to protect your companies, and my portion of it is I'm the last guy. I'm the safety net that just sits out there just in case stuff happens, because heaven knows you want your insurance company paying your fines and your penalties as opposed to out of your own pocket. And so cyber liability is red hot right now. I think I tell my agents, I want that discussed with every single client we have. Because of the likelihood all of us are probably going to be hacked at some point in time. And if it is serious, you want to make sure you've got yourself an insurance policy to back that up. So, any questions anybody has about cyber insurance, I can answer. Oh, come on, I didn't do that good. Any thoughts? How many of you carry cyber insurance on your business? Just curious. That's what I thought. Okay, some, but it's really a lot of people don't. And remember that your data is so valuable. It's a lot. The bad guys want it, and when they get it, it's messy and ugly. So
I got a question.
Yeah.
These cyber policy applications have, dozens or hundreds of questions.
Yep.
That basically say, do you have this in place? Do you have that in place? Do you have that in place? All these parole type things, but way beyond parole.
Yeah. You're right. Yep.
What are they looking for? If you have it all in place, we'll insure you. If you don't,
No, what they do is they look at all of that, and that's how they determine what kind of a rate they charge. Let me think about that. I don't think I have ever had an application denied. The insurance companies will offer it, but just your average company you have a firewall and you've got some simple things in place. That's the $2,500 figure.
they're asking questions like, all this stuff about, employee policies and computer policies and backup policies and privacy policies and on, times 25.
Yeah.
Or 100.
Should I tell you?
Serious stuff, way beyond the average small company.
Yeah. Everyone we've ever written, I usually deal with, hopefully, the C-level folks, and they give it to their IT director. It says, here, will you please answer all these questions and then send it in. But the best answer to put on those applications is just, if the answer is no, obviously they're looking for a yes answer and you have to answer no. The best way to say is, however, we're looking for a partner who could help us write this plan. Because insurance companies want to partner with you. They really do. I know, insurance gets a bad rap in public a lot of times. But they really do want clients that are interested in partnering together, because that improves their risk and it improves your business as well. So applications are painful. There's a lot of questions in there. Usually it's your IT guy that needs to answer them. What else? Anything else? Okay. Earl, Travis, who do we go to?
Yeah, can we give Mark a round of applause, guys?
Okay. Mark, thank you all.
I'm disappointed that not one ball flew the whole.
I agree. Yeah.
You guys let us down.
Right, good.
We want to thank Mark.
Oh, okay. I'll do that.
Yeah. We want to thank Mark for his time and for sharing his expertise and information with us. As he shared, guys, cyber insurance is a no-brainer, and it's not going to cost you thousands of dollars a month. It's an ounce of prevention for a pound of cure, right? It's a few $100 a month, and you are offloading the liability and the cost of that from yourself to the insurance company. So, thank you, Mark. One more round of applause. Let's see. We do want to thank all of our sponsors again. We want to thank all of you for being here today. We hope that this has been valuable. We hope that you take some nuggets and some tidbits away from here. We hope that you walk away from here feeling a little more empowered and having a better sense of what you need to do to keep your organization secure and safe. Let's see. I do want to recognize. Let's give Chad Pettengill from Jeremy Ranch a big round of applause again. We want to thank Chad for hosting us here. Jeremy Ranch is a great company, a great golf course, obviously great facilities. They do have the ability to do events such as this. Chad, am I missing anything that you guys do?
No, we can do any kind of event if anybody's looking for it.
Yeah.
Weddings, parties, anything.
Yeah.
It's all right here in this thing here.
That's right.
All right.
Good facilities, they do a good job, they provide great food, so thank you, Chad. We want to thank Sophos again for being here, and Paul. In fact, let's start our prize drawings here. Let's have Paul come up. By the way, Sophos, you guys saw the videos up front. Hopefully you paid some attention to those. Those are, for me, they're super fun and super funny.
Did you guys see those before I got it?
What's that?
We had them on
Yeah, we had them on autoplay.
So you actually could
So-
win the action figure.
You can win the Dave Malarkey action figure.
And, he's actually here in Utah. He's actually a school teacher, and the video guys are down in Orem. So you may run into Dave sometime. This is real.
Yeah. Don't be a Dave Malarkey CEO. Don't bury your head in the sand and all of you are going, why the hell is he pulling his pant leg up? So these sexy, socks I have are Sophos socks. So Paul's got a few of those to give out too. They have some really cool cybersecurity socks. They unfortunately they won't keep you safe from airborne viruses and things like that. But Paul, why don't you come up and draw a couple of names? What we got? Ferrari, Dave Wiener.
And you're
All right.
even Dave. This is awesome.
All right.
There's 1% unicorn hair in those socks here.
Dave's got some sexy Sophos socks, and he's got a Dave Malarkey action figure. I have a Dave Malarkey sitting on my desk too. It reminds me to not be a stupid CEO. Let's see, Mark. I know you've got something.
I do. Price of gas up as it is. I brought a gas card at Maverick.
I do want to say something, by the way, being that I live in Salt Lake, gas is 20 cents cheaper up here today than it is down in Salt Lake.
Okay, so use it today. Fly to
Go
Maverick.
figure, right?
Yep. I didn't.
All right. Peggy Gustafson.
Peggy Gustafson.
Gustafson. Okay.
There you go. $50 Maverick card.
There you go.
All right, Peggy. Let's see, Tony from Nextiva. As Travis mentioned at the top of our event here, Nextiva has a really amazing, fantastic VoIP system, but it's far more than VoIP. It's unified communications as a service, and it's very collaborative. Allows you to be able to do all sorts of video conferencing and reporting out of your phone system. I mean, there's 1.5 million things it can do. It is the most amazing phone system or unified communication system out there.
We also have a HIPAA compliant thing, so we're talking about, cybersecurity and security things. If you or any of your clients, customers, whatever, have a HIPAA need, we actually have a completely separate platform that is 100% HIPAA compliant as well.
That's right. We just rolled it out for an IHC subsidiary in Salt Lake named Navichem that does cancer research, and we rolled out their Nextiva HIPAA compliant platform. And even your phone system, if you're a healthcare provider, has to be HIPAA compliant. So you've got
What I have is a external battery pack that can charge up to 4 or 3 devices at once. Lasts for a good probably 4 hours charging devices. So. And I have Kevin McCarthy.
All right, Kevin. Thank you, Tony.
You bet.
Chad's got some tumblers. That's what I'm looking for. Chad's got some tumblers over here. Chad, you want to draw a few names?
Sure. Two at a time?
Sure. That's a good idea. His and hers, right?
That's right. Must be pull out my own name. Roy Vindal? Vindal.
Vinendal,
Wait,
promontory.
wait, do you take Jerry?
That's right, you're gonna have Jeremy Rand. I wanna see these on your desk up there in promontory.
I actually know, my father-in-law actually built Jeremy Ranch.
Go get one of those. Go get one of those to Steven.
I
You
live
just
here.
work there. Right.
That's right, you live here, that's right, you live here, so. Oh, see, look,
Hey, you
I did pull it myself.
Back in.
so, I got some tumblers. Sue Kappas?
Yeah, right here.
All
See what
right,
Park
those
City
will look good
Chamber.
over in the chamber.
Yeah.
Those will look good over there.
Careful.
There you go.
All right, so before we have a couple more things that Nexus is going to give away. Before we do that, let's just give our sponsors a round of applause again, guys. Thank you so much. Again, we Sophos, Mark Hatch, Patch Insurance, Nextiva, and Chad with Jeremy Ranch. Travis, why don't you come help me draw a couple of names? Got a couple of 16 gig USB flash drives. Again, you know, be careful with these, right? They're dangerous. They're dangerous. Chad, all right.
I think you pulled out twice.
Dusty, can you run a few things? All right, one more of those. All right, let's. Justine, all right.
Basin Recreation.
Basin Recreation. Fantastic local organization and partner of ours. All right, we have a battery pack as well, not as cool or fancy as Tony's, but you know, we got a battery pack we're gonna give out.
Chris Taylor.
All right.
CenturyLink.
Okay, and final item, one of you is gonna get a 7-inch Amazon Fire tablet.
Travis Gunn.
Drum roll, please. You're ineligible.
Kevin Hill.
Kevin Hill, all right, Kevin. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being here this morning. Hopefully you'll come back again in August and invite more people to come to these. We hope that they're of educational value and actually, you know, you walk away with something. So thanks for being here. Have a great day. Be successful.